Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Framework Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Hopkins, and today I'm joined by somebody who is truly one of the leaders out there in financial services, and really excited to have you on the show today. And, just probably more excited than most people too, being that I have the inside information of some of the things coming from you. And we'll talk a little bit about that here today. But Jacqueline Campbell, we've got right a CEO, and you can tell us a little bit of that as we go. But so excited to have you on the show here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. It is just a beautiful sunny day. I'm actually sitting here in Chicago. Again, not the warmest day, but it's so good to have the sun out and, definitely be able to have this conversation with you, Jamie. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, this is exciting, and it's we're recording this in January right now, and it's funny because we've got the TV in the background, and I saw the fun GameStop stock moving in the background, so it's a crazy world. So I appreciate you taking time out. I always start with kind of I start with two icebreaker questions, but I'll do the other one. So not to leave people in suspense for too long, but do the 60-second kind of who you are, firm, all of that, and then we'll do some of my icebreaker questions.
All right, really good. All right, 60 seconds. Let's go. All right, so meet myself. I'm Jacqueline Campbell, CEO of Amplify Wealth Management. I am so excited about Amplify. A little bit about Amplify. Our goal and our mission is really to truly identify and advance that next generation of undiscovered talent and undiscovered innovation. So we're excited. We're thought leaders. We're disruptors, but most importantly, we're really, really thrilled to really be launching this wealth management business on the foundation of philanthropy. We see right now philanthropy truly is really the biggest action item out there. We're sitting here in 2021, still in the middle of a pandemic. So again, lots of attention on philanthropy right now. And we want to really be a leader in that space. So hopefully I kept it under 60 seconds, but there's a lot of moving parts, and I'm thrilled to get this conversation going.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And yeah, we'll get to some of the philanthropy things later and some of the things you're working on personally there too. So two of the icebreaker questions I love to ask. The first one is about food. So I ask all the guests on the show, right? I love food. I'm a foodie. You're one of my favorite food cities today, right? Being in Chicago, I love Chicago and I love the food scene there. But what speaks to you about food, right? It's different for everyone, whether it's your favorite meal, style of cuisine, going back to family, favorite place to go. It's an open question. So what speaks to you?
Ooh, you are speaking my language when you say food. I'm just like desperate for the restaurants to open. I'm in desperate need of a wonderful, delicious meal. And like you said, I'm in one of the food, I would like to say, capitals of the world here in Chicago. So many different cultures represented here. You can literally go 5 miles one way, hit the Puerto Rican side of town and get some delicious plantain sandwiches. And then you can go to the Jamaican restaurant and get the delicious jerk chicken with the cabbage and the oxtail. And then I could go down to Little Italy and get some authentic Italian meatballs. So you get where I'm going with this. I'm like a jack of all trades, cultures, backgrounds. I love it all. Thai food, you name it. But I would say one of my favorites, happens to be here in Chicago. It is literally like it's a Cuban play on a South American, like Brazilian cuisine. It is dynamic. Oh my gosh. So yes, big shout out. Their name escapes me, but it is the most amazing Cuban Brazilian fusion cuisine. I'm desperate to get back outside.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
I love food, and I love I like oxtail a lot. You mentioned that not a lot of people, I think the first time I actually had an oxtail, I had like an oxtail stew out in
Yeah,
California at a Basque restaurant, and it was wonderful. And yeah, one a
so
big
good.
fan of it. So very cool.
Good.
Uh, the next one here is a great question I started adding in this season of the show, which is first money memory. So it's a question that we love going out to clients and the rest of the world and ask. And I want to start asking this profession and these leaders and what was their first money memory? Did it come from a place of abundance, of fear, of scarcity, of trauma, right? Because it's different for everyone, and it's tells us so much about the person's experience and that money script also. So for you, Jack, what was the first money memory that you have?
Oh my goodness. It dates all the way back to like when I was probably 7, maybe 8 years old. And my mom, at the time, she owned her CPA firm. She had her own practice. And so I would have to be like in tow with her, or especially during tax season, to like go to all her clients and sit there and add up receipts and do general ledgers. I mean, she had to teach me this accounting business as her little assistant at 7. And then what she did, which was really dynamic, was she made me her little employee. And so when I wanted things like whether it was doll houses, Barbie doll houses, or as I got older, the latest and greatest gym shoes and jeans, and so I could be with the cool kids. She instead of just giving the money, she made me an employee of her business, and really taught me the value of being, again, and really understanding the business model, understanding what it meant to earn money, what it meant to provide great client service. The more I did, the more, of course, she was able to pay me. So she really got me, sort of interested in the value of work and work ethic. At an early age, because that's how, if I wanted to spend money, she didn't just give it to me. I had to earn it through working at one of her businesses. That was just one. I worked at her. She had an ice cream truck. That was one of my other first jobs. I actually would get out of school, and then I would literally like walk home, and then I would get on the Good Humor truck, and then we would go to all the baseball games and all the soccer games. And while everyone else was out there playing soccer, I was serving ice cream and making 25 cents for every ice cream I sold. That was what I negotiated in my
Yeah.
deal. And so anyway, like, yeah. So those are my money memories, right? I really, really, really just, I wanted to make money because I like to spend
Yeah.
it.
So how did your it's great. How did your mom become such a entrepreneur and builder? Because you said, yeah, multiple things, ice cream truck and CPA firm, and yeah, it's awesome. I love to hear that. How did what was it from her parents, or did she just kind of learn and realize, what, when you own things and you build things, good things occur?
Absolutely. And so it's so funny to that point. My grandparents were also entrepreneurs. My grandfather owned his own business. He was also a minister, but he had like multiple churches and multiple campuses across Indiana. And then he also ran a farm, which was, again, a business that he required my mom and her brothers to work in. And then as the grandkids started to come along, that's where we spent our summer vacations. We were shipped away to grandma and grandpa's house. And, during the day, we had to really serve and, get out there and pick the vegetables and do all the stuff in the farm. And then, after we did that, we could have our fun and enjoy each other as cousins and all that good stuff. But so that's where when I think about my ancestors and my grandparents, and that's really where it came from. So the value of really having a system in place around how you either feed your family, right? So part of that farm was not just a business, but it was for sustainability, right? It was, they went through hard times where they
Mhm.
didn't know if they were going to be able to eat. And so the idea of having a farm and growing your own vegetables and then being a producer of that for the community was very important to my family. And then sort of those sort of values then spilled over into how my mom really raised us, right? It was about, the business wasn't just about making the family rich. It was about creating jobs, creating opportunity, giving the neighborhood. Like, I wasn't the only one working on my ice cream truck. My mother employed all my friends, right? She said, you girls all like spending money. So my best friends all got, got jobs because, if we wanted to, go out and spend money and do all the stuff that teenagers do, we needed money to do it. So it was a real great way to start resume building, but in a very unique way, right? Learning logistics, learning customer service skills, learning how to balance the register, learning how to grow a business. We went from one ice cream truck to two. And then we ended up opening an ice cream parlor, and then we ended up opening a second location off the river. So it literally turned into a real franchise model that was very unique, and really just something that just birthed out of just a necessity for, we got to figure out how to get these kids some money and get them out of our pocket.
And so you mentioned in there too, that it's not always the all positives. Like, so what's I love the positive side too, but what's something either the family overcame or you remember too that kind of strengthened you as you grew from a young age, right? Because the working and seeing things grow is a great experience, but as you mentioned, right, especially the farming world, right, it's not always good,
Right.
and there are challenges, and things that happen overseas affect farming here, and I'm always interested by the people that are in finance that came from the farming, because they do have this sense of macro world, because right, farmers do get like, well, if China starts doing X, Y, or Z, even back in the 80s, it has an impact on what we're doing here.
Right.
So it's a very cool kind of tie to see the macro world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I would say is, to that, I think where my head was going, from direction wise, I would pivot to say some of the challenges that I saw, that I saw my mother in particular and our family go through from a financial standpoint. Jamie, was really, it stemmed from the divorce. I'm just going to put it up. That's where
Yeah.
I saw really the breakdown of sort of the family legacy sort of get disrupted in a very, unfortunately, in a very big way. And, so a lot of stuff just started happening where, we literally had to start all the way over. Right. And so, bankruptcies, foreclosures, all of that impacted the financial, house that was being built based on all that I just described. And so I only bring that up because it's just real life, right?
Hmm.
The trauma wasn't really about what happened to, say, the farmland. The trauma what happened, as it related to, just the internal family dynamics. And some of the things that you and I know that we have to deal with as financial advisors is, how do we really help clients that might be, going through something like that? How do we make it so that they don't lose on the other side of that, but they actually win, and they win for their family first, and then of course they can sustain that family legacy and not let it break apart. And so that's one of my missions, right? As I think about why I'm doing what I'm doing, one of the key missions is because I saw what happened to sort of our family legacy, and I feel like I'm sort of, lack of better words, sort of been put as trustee and steward to really rebuild that and really make sure that, we have the right foundation so that, we can see generational wealth, as we know is critically important in many of our families, to where we're really trying to ensure that racial equity is there, and that there's true, opportunity on the other side. Like I like to say, I want this to outlive me. I want to be honestly worth more dead than alive, but that's going to require me to be very intentional about how I built the family. And so I bring that up because, again, those were some of the things that caused me to pause and really reflect, really see what hurt me the most. What was the blood, sweat, and tears of my journey? That probably was, but it caused me to say, how can I really make a difference in this space?
Yeah. How old were you when that kind of was occurring, and because obviously that's formational, as you said, it really changed the direction of kind of the family, enterprises and everything that was being built. And then all of a sudden, right, a shift.
That was my senior year of high school. It was interesting. I mean, I literally, to the point where I spent the last 3 months of my senior year in a motel where I rented a room for $600 a month just to, again, make sure that I wasn't caught into, what was happening, the dissolution that was happening with the family. But then really that was the start
it's 11
over.
o'clock.
Oh, sorry. This thing always talks to me. But, really that was my moment, right? That was that like shift of what just happened. We went from legacy to multiple homes to multiple businesses and, again, job creation to I'm in a hotel and 17 years old and I'm thinking I'm supposed to go away to college, but doesn't look like that's going to be my journey anymore. So that was the real reflection moment for me, where I knew life was about to shift in a very unique way.
And so what was the step after that? Because obviously that's challenging. You're in a, hotel, motel, paying for that and trying to, probably stay focused on life and stay out of some of the complexities there. So what happened after that for yourself?
Yeah, so fortunately, and this is the real silver lining and the beauty in the story is that the high school that I was going to at the time offered an internship, sort of a senior high school co-op internship program. So I was accepted into that program that last year of my high school years. And then what happened was, because my co-op experience was going really well, they ended up offering me a full-time job upon completion of my high school diploma. And so instead of me going straight to college and doing that whole experience, I decided to work full-time. And then I went to community college, essentially took classes at night, but I was able to tap into the tuition reimbursement program. So the beautiful thing was I ended up graduating college years later, but I graduated debt-free because I really leveraged, the opportunity of my employer really supporting that. But at the same time, I got the skills to be able to launch, that's what really launched my wealth management business, or wealth management career, I should say, Jamie. I decided to take a full-time job at 18 years old, right after I graduated high school at what was then Comerica Bank. And then they offered me a role in their trust department working in the private bank. So at 18, I started to get that exposure of now outside of working with my mom and her business and, her accounting clients. Now I started to get exposure to trust clients, private banking clients, and really seeing a very different experience even on that side of the table. So that's what really sort of got my career started in wealth management.
Yeah. So what was the experience like in the trust department, right? Because that's it's a different clientele than kind of the normal person that walks into a bank, right? It's a different level of engagement, right?
Right. Absolutely. I have the craziest story about my experience at the trust department. So my initial role, again, we're talking back in the 90s. This was like 93, 94. And so my role was really be the receptionist. So I was there to greet clients as they came in, make sure they had their coffee, their coats, everything was perfect. I would answer phones. I would make sure that the files were put away. And again, really my role was to provide a dynamic customer experience. And so one day I remember a client came in and they left their files with me, to go file away. And I'm looking at the document and I noticed it was like my grandmother, who was deceased, but it was my grandmother's address from the house that she lived in, the house that I would go over all the time when I was a little girl. But I noticed it was another family's name listed. So again, I'm like 18 at the time, 17. I'm like, what does this mean? So I went to my trust officer and I said, why is my grandmother's, address listed on this document? What's going on? Is this something I need to know? And they said, well, no. What happened was, I guess when my family sold my grandmother's house, when she passed away, a trust ultimately purchased the house, and now the house is owned by the trust. And the first thing I thought about, I said, well, that's not my family. And I'm like, are you sure that my family is not the one that should be the beneficiary of the trust? And they're like, no, that's not your family. That's our client. And it just hit me that, oh my God. And that was just that moment in time where I started learning about trust.
Yeah.
Jamie, I was like, we got to figure out how to keep some of this stuff in the family, because that's generational wealth. That was a home that was, say, paid for. That was an opportunity for housing. That was, in an excellent neighborhood. But again, if we don't know, we don't know. And so that's where I started to really explore private banking, trust, and understanding how important it is to have a trust. And so yes.
So did you go back to the family and ask the question, like, why did we sell this house?
I know, I felt bad. I didn't want my dad and my aunt to feel bad. But now I did hint to it. And they know that I'm in the industry, so they know I'm asking a lot of questions now. So, but yeah, it was really an interesting way to learn about trust documents and really start exploring that side of the business.
Awesome. So we'll keep pushing forward. So after, so you started in the business kind of there, probably at that point in time, right? You start thinking more and more again about generational wealth and trust planning and building this. And so what's kind of the next step after that? I mean, how does the career kind of continue to progress? And you're in charge of that, so wherever you want to go.
Yeah. So after I was, appointed in that role after I graduated high school and decided to do that as sort of the kickstart, I navigated through the retail world where I spent time as a teller. So, it had the opportunity to be client facing, had an opportunity to also be a branch manager. So again, manage a team of bankers and tellers. But, one day there was an opportunity that came up to move from the banking side of the business to the investment side of the business. And so I decided to explore that opportunity. Here's what's interesting. I looked at the qualifications, and Jamie, I probably only met like 50% of the qualifications, but I was like, you know what, I'm going for it. And so I only share that with people because a lot of times we get scared of going for our dreams and going for, something that might seem out of reach. But if you have the right mentors and the right people around you, you can do it. Because some of the things I saw on there, I was like, I don't meet this right now, but I'm sure I could learn it. So I was confident enough to go for this role to be an institutional investment associate for their securities department on the investment side. So anyway, I got the job. So that was really exciting. And then they said, okay, you got to study for your Series 7 and you got to study for your Series 63 and all the different licenses. And so I was very fortunate that, again, I had a great mentor, probably the best mentor I've had in my life, sets the benchmark. He worked with me every single day to make sure I got through those licenses because he knew how important that was, one, for me to keep my job, right? And then two, he knew that could set up a really successful career. I had no clue. I mean, at the time, Jamie, I was probably making like $27,800 a year. It was like, for me, I was check to check. I knew no better. He said, listen, and he sat me down and he got me through those licenses successfully. And then he showed me, I was actually on the institutional side of the business at the time. He showed me how to price deals to where we would win and we would be lead underwriter and form a syndicate and selling group. So I say all that to say, at now I'm 21, 22 years old, I'm learning how to price multi-million-dollar deals because I have a mentor who's literally showing me how to do this and holding his people. Literally, his team were held accountable to making sure that I was very successful in my role as a junior associate on the team. And the more they poured into me, the more we continue to grow the business. And ultimately, I decided it was time for mama to leave the nest. And so I left the nest in 99 and flew over to Chicago from Detroit, and then started working with high net worth in institutions and high net worth individuals at the Northern Trust. And so it continued the same sort of trajectory, but again, sort of marveled the trust experience I had where I started with now the high net worth and more institutional experience. But then I also had an opportunity to really go out, work with our trading desk, and really go out and price more, money market fixed income, which we know back in the late 90s, we could capture a little bit more yield than we can capture today. So it was, a little bit of lucrative. And then, I'm fast forward, 2002, decided, I really, really want to work with our everyday clients. I want to really shift gears and go to the retail side of the business and really help sort of our everyday client get to their next level in financial planning and success. So I moved over to the retail side, and then really went on a campaign. So after 2 years, grew the business to about $40 million in assets. And from there was tapped to actually lead a team of advisors to basically do the same thing, right? Like show them how to do it. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So the majority of my career, Jamie, I spent really building teams and leading teams and helping them grow and helping them perform. And most importantly, providing, really unique experience for them to be engaged so I could retain them and increase their performance. And so that's where I spent the majority of my time, which has been really, really fun. I've met a lot of wonderful and amazing advisors and a lot of amazing managers of advisors as well, who are just doing some great things out there. But here we are. I try to speed up a little bit, but just my career journey a little bit. I was an advisor, a manager of advisors, and then right before I left my corporate experience, I spent time leading the D&I efforts for the wealth management group, and that was so much fun. I mean, I really enjoyed understanding, various cultures, backgrounds, different experiences, and really putting together a real tight plan on how we're going to continue to attract the best and brightest talent. So that's really, that's where I ended. Took 2020 off, had a sabbatical, took a deep breath, because as I've been telling you, I've been working since I was 2. I was tired. I'm a mother of 2 kids as well. So, lots of moving parts in 2020 allowed me to really pause for the cause and really take a deep breath and love and understand and appreciate life at its greatest and fullest. And then, fast forward, great opportunity to connect with you and the Carson group and so many other beautiful people there. And I'm just excited that now it's ready to rock and roll. Like we're ready to do some big and some dynamic things.
Yeah, I'm gonna want to go back to some of some more of your story there, but we're here now, which is tell us, a little bit about, what you're launching right now, right? And you mentioned the mission at the beginning, but I mean, it goes deeper than that, right? We gave you a couple seconds, but tell us, what are you building? Why are you so excited about it? And just the impact that you really want to have moving forward here.
Absolutely. So I am excited about really building a firm that really does attract the best and the brightest talent, where we can, and I say undiscovered, right? There's so much beautiful talent out there. And so we want to be able to attract the best and the brightest undiscovered talent and innovation, and really be a destination where, people feel, really excited about growing and developing and building a strong business, right? So I'm at heart, I'm again, CEO at heart. I'm a leader at heart. I really get excited about going out and finding the diamonds, attracting the diamonds, getting them to see each other for each other's beauty. And I believe together through collaboration, I'm really excited about building something super fabulous. Now, I would say the more specific thing that I'm really thoughtful about and more intentional about is that, as I mentioned earlier, philanthropy is super, super important to me. It's something that's been embedded in my family from the very beginning. I mean, I just remember, again, as a little girl, Christmas, Thanksgiving, you name it, whatever holiday, we're out giving hundreds, if not thousands, of turkeys away, dinners away, dollars away. I mean, we were just taught the more you give, the more to whom much is given, I should say, much is required. And so, we have seen that truly the pathway to wealth is through philanthropy. That's what we believe through our core. And so I see where now the big donors that we've, witnessed recently, the Mackenzie Scotts is an example, who just gifted $6 billion or so dollars to various universities. You start to really study the minds and the hearts of these sort of individuals. And it's like, this is exactly what we are, right? This is who we are. This is who we strive to be. We want to really work and build a firm that not only attracts advisors that have that philanthropy as a core mentality, but really attract those type of clients too, that, they want the returns. Yes, we all want the returns. We all want to make money. I get it. But like, I really am excited about working with clients who know it's bigger than them, and that, they're using their wealth. They're using, all that we're seeing here in the marketplace, using that for impact. And like, we want to be a firm that really can help facilitate that transaction and say, listen, check our background, check our, we are really through core and core. We're givers at heart. We give 10, 20% of everything that comes in the door. We give it to charity. We have a foundation that we're setting up simultaneously, where a portion of our income will go to fund that, because we know how important job creation is right now. We know how important homelessness and hunger is right now in our very country. 1 in 6 people are starving. We're looking at homelessness numbers increasing. We need to be the ones at the table, at the finance table, to really help drive, change and make an impact in those areas. So we know how to attract the money over on one side. We know how to really help, our clients, if you will, those major donors see, the opportunities on the other side that are hopefully the ones that meet the causes that they care about the most. And so anyway, I say all that to say philanthropy is our foundation. We want to be known as that place that, people who are truly through and through donors first. We want to have a philanthropy giving planning methodology. And that's the type of environment that we're excited to create.
Yeah, and I think you told me, right, you're going through the CAP program, designation program. We got, from American College, you've got Phil Cabetta, who kind of helped get that up and running. They've got other great people there. And then, President George Nichols over there too, who, hey, George. And so that's a great program. I think that's exciting, especially when you lead with philanthropy. Do you have any, I don't maybe have an answer on this or don't yet. Have you thought about, like, from an education standpoint for your team and the advisors, like, is that something you want to encourage, whether it's that but just in general, the development of your team moving forward? Kind of what's your mindset on that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we know is critically important to, advisors is that they have, the right coaches. So being able to have access to executive coaches is extremely important, so that they always have a resource that they can ensure that they have access to build and grow their practice. I would say number 2 is having to your point, we want to be that firm that's known as philanthropy. And because of that, I'm sitting for the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy certification myself. And I want people to come in and say, listen, I will invest in them if they invest in themselves and in this opportunity to take it to the next level. And I think that certification allows us to really set ourselves apart and, really be a firm that is really, again, again, going after sort of those philanthropic,
Mhm.
donors and dollars to help those individuals really see our firm as a firm of choice. And so I would love advisors that either have that already as a designation, or see that as a value, and we would invest in them, because again, that's a value that we think that we can bring to our clients in a very unique way. The other thing that's unique that I'm providing, I guess you could say, as a benefit outside of the coaching and outside of this certification, is the other big thing that I see that people need access to is just this health and wellness. Right now, a lot
Mhm.
of people are juggling a lot. And work-life balance, especially those of us that have kids and we're trying to juggle the whole keep at home, stay at home procedures with our schools. It's really about saying, how do we support those parents and still make sure that they have the support they need to be a successful advisor. And so we've offered up, I, I have offered up everywhere from one of my employees that we're bringing on board. She's going to get a credit towards nanny services, where an in-house person can come in a couple days a week. So if she needs to just get out, have a separate environment, get laser focused, really drive, really, then that way everyone feels good, right? Of course, all COVID appropriate, but we're trying to meet people where they are. There's a lot of, things and concerns on the backs of advisors that are causing them, to, maybe paralyzing them in growth. And if you can just solve some of these little nuances that could help not only them, but their spouse and their family, oh my God, it's a win-win. So I'm excited about bringing those kind of experiences as well, outside of the just certifications and industry conference attendance and all the things we know that are important for growth, but some of these other things that are getting in the way that can really help them see the beauty and the value of joining us.
Yeah, and I loved your message too about just making sure, some of those basic areas, right? The having a home and being fed, and those are so crucial right now. If we've seen a whole new group of people, right, pushed into homelessness, into poverty. That I love No Kid Hungry. It's a place that I try to donate a couple times a year, and there's a bunch of really great things. All the local food banks need help right now too. So that's a good message to get out if people are listening, and you get inspired, you want to give back. Today's always a good day.
Always a good day. Don't wait till like Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
It is always a good day to get going, right?
Yeah.
For every dollar that comes in, it should be something that goes out. So that's where, that's where the real abundance comes from. So that's what's exciting about really pushing this.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about, as you were a leader of teams, you mentioned, right, retention, coaching, mentorship. What were, give us a couple things that you've learned. I always like to ask this: what's something that you've learned out of your kind of story, your leadership, that other people listening can take out of the framework of that and put into the framework of their own lives, businesses, practices, whatever it may be. And I think especially around that leadership, mentorship, coaching, because you've always been kind of laser focused on those. You had a really great mentor, or maybe multiple, but you got lucky and had a really good one to start off. And that was, I know we've talked about that before. Getting lucky with that sometimes really is really important, which means we need more people to go out and be those mentors too, when you have the capability.
Absolutely. For me, it always boils down to about three categories. Category number one is, we can call it people, we can call it talent. But it really does mean, like, I always look for who are the best. And if I'm an advisor, I consider, like, who are the best clients, who are the type of clients I want to work with, and really understand very clearly my target market. Or if I am, a business leader in wealth management, I want to know who are the best business leaders in wealth management. And I want to know, what are their characteristics? How did they get there? How do they sustain? So I really study. I read a lot of books of business leaders that I respect. I listen to a lot of podcasts of business leaders that that I respect, because it allows me to really, again, that's that seeking understanding. Because when I think about what we want to build, it has to be built on the foundation of real success and people who have already done it and they're willing to share with you their story and their secret sauce. Like, I'm all about it, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel when, you know, you have. So for me, I learned in my role of leadership is that you have to be surrounded with excellent talent, know how to hire great talent, know how to have great talent at your boardroom, accept talent who challenges you. That's what I love about, having, multiple type of people at the table who give me all their thoughts and ideas. Some tell me I'm crazy. Some tell me I'm brilliant. I have to take all the pain and all the roses and the thorns. But that's number one. I would say for me, I'm all about people. Number two, knowing your numbers. I would say that's the other big lesson I got, as a business leader. It was like, all right, Jack, that's all great, pomp and circumstance, but let's get down to the brass tacks. And so I really respected the opportunity of understanding a P&L, understanding how to build out a projection 1, 3, 5, and 10 years, understanding what real growth meant, what organic and inorganic, what it meant to really grow, not just the business, but then to help translate that business model to the individual advisor so that they saw themselves as part of a real business and not just a check the box, right? I made them feel part of a bigger ecosystem, if you will, as part of a P&L. So I did P&L reviews with all of my advisors so that not only did that hold me accountable of knowing my numbers, but they can hold me, because advisors will hold you accountable to some numbers if you give them a number. So it was a great way for me to engage top producers, $1 million plus advisors, to that new advisor that I just attracted from across the street, to really make sure that I was accountable to knowing my numbers. So people, numbers. And then I would say last, but certainly not least, is the protection. Being able to, when I say protection, like clean, U4s, right? Having a compliant practice, having, making sure that, for me, it was like, always dotting the I's, crossing the T's. And even when I didn't do it, I had so many amazing, great compliance partners and supervision partners that just helped keep all of us protected and made sure that we just weren't just out here doing things sloppy. We were representing ourselves with class and, and also knowing that we're representing our clients bigger than us. And so again, that's really the other lesson that I learned in our business, right? Is this running a clean shop is critically important. And again, making sure those are practices that you do in your own home, in your own finances, right? Making sure that you run a clean shop through and through is critical. And then, of course, know your numbers. And last but not least, talent.
So when do you know when somebody's not the right fit, and how do you move quickly on that, right? Because I mean, it's one of those things that a lot of leaders say, right? You hire slowly and you fire quickly, right? When you know it's the wrong person. But I think that's a challenge for a lot of advisors. I run into small teams and they like the person, and so they get stuck with an underperforming person for a very long time. And to some degree, right, that can create problems for businesses, but it also can create problems for other team members. So how did you address that as a leader when you were looking at people who weren't the right fit?
That is such a great question, because I think I've been guilty as charged, right? Where I probably kept that underperformer a little longer than I should have, because again, my heart potentially may have gotten in the way. And you try to always remember that these are human beings first. And you sort of extend a little bit of grace when you know that there could be some potential circumstances that are behind the curtain, that you may not necessarily know, but you're discerning and you're asking the right questions. So again, I try to really make sure that I'm just not focused on the surface and the numbers, and but that I'm peeling the onion back a little bit more to really understand, is there a serious issue here that I need to address, that this person needs to be terminated for immediately because they're putting the firm and they're putting the practice at risk and our clients? Or is there just like a, something that just needs a pause, right? So
Mhm.
I try to be a discerning leader, really, ensure that that part happens. But I would say for me, when I look at underperformers, I first, before I jump on them, I jump on me first. Meaning, I look myself in the mirror and I say, why are they underperforming? Have I given them everything that as a leader, have I poured into them? Did I onboard them properly? Did I make sure that they were surrounded with the resources, or did I just throw them out in the ocean and expect them to like, go figure out how to swim? And did I really support them the way? So I do start there. And
Mhm.
let's just say I can honestly say, yeah, I did. If I can say I did, like, yep, yep, yep. If I can say I did, and they are just like totally just blowing it, then I have no problem. Jamie, I'm very direct at that point. I have no problem saying, come to the office, this is not working. We've done this on these separate dates. And I will document and I will say, so this is not working. And I appreciate what you've done so far, but this is no longer going to be,
Yeah.
part of how we're going to move forward. So I'm very, when it comes to that part of the business, I have no problem cutting the cord, but I do start by making sure that I feel like I have done my part. So I can sleep well at night knowing that, hey, if I have to terminate this person, it's not because they weren't supported. It's not because they didn't have the resources. It's all because they're just choosing at that point to be an underperformer, and I don't choose underperformers.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I'm going to shift to another topic because that's kind of my job here to keep
yeah.
us moving. So I can't let myself underperform now either.
There we go.
And so I love that answer, but I'm going to shift to, again, this is still in that same area of leadership from you. But when at your last role, right, had the ability to build, I guess what you'd say is programming, mission, around, as you mentioned before, DE&I across
Mhm.
a large enterprise and lead that. Uh, Obviously, right? It's that's important to you, community inclusion. What was it like to build out a program that impacted that many people, though? Because to me, that's becoming a bigger topic over the last year or so, at least. I don't know, a bigger topic, whatever the right word is, that it definitely got pushed into the front of people's minds, to businesses' minds. And you actually got to build something prior to that and actually roll it out, which is really important, right? And so
Mhm.
I'd love to just hear like experience, challenges with that, and anything that somebody's listening that is still in the mode of like, we've got to do better, we've got to put in the work, we've got to grow this, we've got to take it to the next step. What are lessons that you learned that maybe business owners or people here could take away?
Absolutely. I would say for me, a big part of, the foundation of that program was really with awareness. It was starting with, again, not assuming, our bias might be to assume that people know certain things. And so it was really starting with addressing any unconscious biases, really working with some of our human resource partners and our global diversity experts, business resource groups, bringing those various people together, and just really saying, all right, what's important, for this group versus this group versus this group. And again, my job, I like to say, is the conduit. I just want to be the person that can then pull that information together and make sure, again, awareness is known both at the top and at the field level. So that was first and foremost. And that happens by way of trainings, all the different things that, companies do to bring awareness. I was really want to help, just more drive what those discussions might, the framework of the discussion. When you have these kind of topics, again, sensitivity is key. And so really understanding how we want to deliver certain topics throughout the year. What are some of the topics that might be taboo that we might want to, potentially, push the envelope on. So really being a thought leader at the table when it came to after we talked awareness. Now, what does that mean? How does that roll out and look like? And ultimately, what's the outcome? What's the desired outcome that we're trying to, achieve by way of doing this, right? And so, for me, I come at it with really two points. It was like, what is the opportunity? What's the real opportunity when you have say a diverse and inclusive firm? Like, and I started to really understand the numbers looking at all the way from, we know millennials, for example, only like 35-year-old, with 11% of the industry is less than 35 years old. So we know that there's now a true pipeline problem of young millennial talent. So knowing those numbers and then having a solve, being able to come in and say, through this program, let's figure out how we can then pipeline. If we know that that's clearly a problem, then we should have a millennial focus where we build out a mentorship program with some of our sunsetters who are basically sunsetting over the next 10 years at the rate of $8 trillion. Like, we need them as mentors to help transition these beautiful, what I like to call sunrisers, our millennials that we need to bring in, so that they not only maybe start with, they don't need to start with scratch. We got enough sunsetters that have $8 trillion for them to start, but then we need their thought leadership. We need their wisdom. We need their knowledge. And so that the program was really about, I had to say, going, connecting the old school to the new school and really making sure that we could blend this to really solve what we know is so important in growing and continuing this sort of, process of birthing, right? We have to continue to sow these seeds, and we need the support of our legacy advisors to step up. And so I've been sort of, I'm still not legacy yet. I'm kind of in the middle. I like to say I'm next gen, but not really. I like to still connect with my.
It's okay.
I can pivot. I can still do the bop and all that stuff the kids are doing. But I know also how to connect with, our sunsetters. So really getting sort of this whole process really was where I focused on, was how do we attract talent? How do we retain? And retain is interesting. Engagement. When somebody's engaging, think about it like this. Say you post something on like LinkedIn and somebody hits like, or somebody hits love, or somebody actually comments, and they're constantly commenting. That's an engagement strategy, as an example, because what you're seeing with that is that here's somebody that's watching me, they're liking me, so they're engaged, they like the content that I'm putting out. But what that means for advisors, right? And what that means is that they want to feel like they can be engaged with their manager. Many of them don't leave because of more money. They leave because of leadership. They leave because the leadership in the culture is a mismatch. And so I try to work, as part of the work was, how do we get people engaged so that they're sticky, so that they don't go and take the next offer, so that they see this as a firm that they want to retire at, and attract more people like them to join and be part of a growing and ever-changing demographic that we see. So I say all that to say that was really the core of the work, was awareness, was bringing programming, bringing thought leaders together, and really putting a plan together on how to go after different people, different organizations, all the way to how to retain and engage key employees, and then how to help those key employees continue to capture more opportunity in their practice, so that they're making money and they're happy. That's a win-win. I shoot for the win-win. I like happy and making money.
Yeah. And I love that you're bringing all that to Amplified now too. So it's going to be an exciting place to work with and be around. Yes. I kind of one last question, and then we'll get to the wrap up here. So when you were with Chase, then how did, like, was that something that they brought to say, hey, we need to look at this and solve for it, or did it come up kind of more grassroots up to, hey, we need to focus on this? Like, how was that dynamic occurring inside? Because I'm always interested in that, right? Big, you know, in larger companies, right? How do some of these things get legs and take off?
Absolutely. So, of course, with a company that big, there's always going to be, some type of business resource groups, naturally throughout the firm. There were about 10 different business resource groups targeting different, demographics. But then, as the business started to grow and change, naturally diversity and inclusion became a hot topic, definitely at the larger corporate level. And then, of course, lines of business within that corporate level had to then start even getting more intentional, because when you have a company as big as, say, Chase's 270,000 people globally, naturally you need, you can't have just one person leading that at that scale. You really need more local focus, if you
Mhm.
will. And so I say all that to say that there was a larger infrastructure in place, but where I guess you could say I created sort of a role for myself, essentially. Where I saw, I'm like, oh, but my line of business did not have a specific lead, if you will, that were focused on really developing and engaging diverse talent and people of color. And so at this point, I decided to like literally write myself up a job description, and I submitted it to our CEOs, and sort of asked for the opportunity to really serve in that space and to be a conduit of helping to drive engagement, retention, and really help to get the wealth management business name out in the communities that I knew I was connected to really expand that awareness and attract talent, really, strong, bright talent. And so, that was enough for me to actually get the job offer.
Yeah.
So I presented it, and within 14 days, I had an offer in hand. So that was a really exciting moment for me. And that's really sort of what kickstart, that journey.
So you did this at least twice, probably more times now. Just listening to this, you said you applied to a job which you said maybe you were only halfway qualified for at the time, even though you knew, right, you had the confidence to know you could grow in or do all those things. And then second, you actually you wrote down and said, hey, here's the job. It's not there, but I could do this. um, and I love that, because I talk to people all the time that don't have that self-confidence to believe that they can do X job. I do not struggle with this. When you meet people that know me, like nobody ever says that about me. I've got the opposite issue. But there's research, right, that suggests, right, men will apply to jobs they're like halfway, 60% qualified for, they'll apply. And a lot of women and just other people that lack that confidence. But the research I know I've seen was about men and women, and I think from LinkedIn or whatever. And women, they got to get closer to 100%, right?
You're right.
And obviously, people are different. You said, hey, I don't care about that. I can do it. So, what do you think is though is it self confidence that you just believe? And because I always try to express this to people, like I do it with my wife. She'll look at a job and she's like, "Oh, well, it says this. I'm not qualified." I'm like, "Apply." Like, always apply. Like, what is the worst that happens? They send you an email back that says, "Hey, we're not interested." Okay, whatever.
Right.
But
That's it.
yeah,
That's it. I mean, I would say for me, that first time, it was almost like I had nothing to lose.
yeah,
I just had to take the attitude of, well, I mean, I'm going to still apply, even though I only meet the 50. Now, I was confident enough, though, to your point about confidence, that is key, that the other 50, that I would just figure out how to figure that out,
yeah.
and with their help. And I was very upfront about that. I didn't go into the interview and lie. What I did do was I said, here's the things that I bring, here's the value that I bring to the table. And, it may not be listed on that job description per se, but I had to almost outsell the other part of the value that was intrinsic, right? That was not necessarily on that. And I think that's where we have to help people understand is there's an intrinsic value. And what that intrinsic value, no real job description can really identify that. So you've got to be able to be confident in who you are, the ability that you bring to the table. And so I was able to go into that job and talk about my experience working on the ice cream truck, right? Working in the arts, working as my mom's assistant at 7, doing debits and credits. But help them understand how that correlated with maybe some of the things that maybe I didn't quite meet on paper, but clearly I'm say driven enough to learn, right? So I had to have enough sort of confidence in myself and really trust in myself that I would take the time and not just go out and, pardon my French, BS, right? But like really walk the walk and talk the talk. And so when they told me you had to pass that Series 7, that was a very difficult exam to take at 20, I think I was just turning 22 years old. But I sat down and I studied, I burnt that midnight oil and I passed that test, right? And so that was just, again, that's the part of it. It's like, if you're only going to go, if you got to believe enough in yourself, right? And so when I flew to New York to ask the CEO for that last job, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was like very nervous, on that flight to LaGuardia, okay? I was like in the cab from LaGuardia to Midtown, like shaking in my boots. I had to stop and like have a glass of water at the Starbucks. But anyway, I say that to say, when I got on that elevator, and I got off, I remember it was like the 32nd floor of headquarters at the time. And I remember like having this 2-3 page deck in my hand. And I said, this is it. I have flew out here with this thing. And because I actually flew out there to ask for the job. I didn't ask for Zoom. I didn't ask. I said, I'm on my way, even if it's for 30 minutes. And it was a 25-minute meeting. Okay. And I remember I had a plan. And I said, if this doesn't work, I guess I'm just gonna have to figure it out elsewhere. And I don't mean it like I just had to know that I was so confident in what I was gonna bring to the table that if they didn't want it, somebody else will. And they wanted it. They gave me the job. And so I'm always still very thankful for that experience. And it did, it's exciting when you have enough courage to go for your dreams. And so that's really what it was about, Jamie. The 50% was just going for the dream, right? The role in D&I was just going for the dream. Coming over here to Carson, right? Amplify is a dream. It's just continuing to go for the dreams.
Yeah. Love that message. Go for the dream, have the confidence, put in the work. That's it.
Put in the work and have that confidence to do it. 2020 taught us a lot, right? We only have one life to live, so go for the dreams.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I had a friend text me while we've been on this, so I'll give him a shout out. Dr. David Roney, who actually, he says his sister-in-law or brother went to school with you. So funny enough, they're from Detroit, and he's a Navy surgeon actually. So David, yeah, so we'll connect you. He's been on the show before. He's a wonderful guy. He went to the Navy Academy, played basketball there, and is a robotic surgeon in the Navy. So pretty cool. Everyone's always connected. I think that's hilarious. I
love it. Yeah. Hey, shout out, go Detroit.
Yeah, it's always, I always like getting a couple people from past episodes mentioned on the current episode too. So when people are listening, they can go back and listen to Dr. David's episode now too. So it's awesome.
I'm there. Dr. David, I'm checking you out.
Well, so the last thing is here, best places to connect with you, reach out to you. So obviously you have your personal website, and then Amplified should be up around when we're announcing this. So we can definitely check out both of those, right?
Absolutely. We'll have our website up, so stay tuned for that. But LinkedIn. So I would say right now, the fastest, easiest way to connect with me is on LinkedIn, because that's probably where a lot of my, updates and all that good stuff, websites and just exciting, news, blogs, all that fun stuff. We'll connect with you guys on LinkedIn. And of course, Jamie and everybody, like we're all connected now. So I look forward to furthering this conversation and meeting some new friends after this podcast.
Yep. Well, I'm sure that some people will be reaching out to you after the podcast drops and all this great, exciting news for you heading into this year. And I've got to thank you, one, for everything you've done for this profession over the years, being such a great leader. Two, for taking time to come on the show. That's always important. Got to thank the guest, because without the guests, it would just be me, and that's terrible. And then third, so excited for Amplified and what you're going to build, and partnering up, with Carson Group there too is super exciting. So yeah, just ready to see you continue to put that philanthropy and leadership first and build out such an amazing thing here in the future.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. That is so special. Thank you for all that you're doing to just get the voices out, right? And that's really, what we learned last year was, just the opportunity to be heard and to be celebrated. And it's going to produce something amazing. And so again, thank you for what you're doing for the community, what the firm is doing. I know lots of work that you all are doing to give back and to be philanthropic. And so it's exciting times for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And all the listeners, thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Framework Podcast.